You've been told to be good, to be fair, to be kind, to do the right thing, even when it's hard. But what no one warned you about is that in the real world, being good can be dangerous. When you're always agreeable, people stop listening. When you always forgive, people stop respecting you. When you always give, people start expecting, without offering anything back. And slowly, quietly, your goodness becomes a burden. This is the hidden curse no one talks about. Not because kindness is wrong, but because when it's unguarded, unboundaried, and unexamined, it becomes the very reason others walk over you. Machiavelli saw this clearly. He believed that in a world driven by power, appearances, and strategy, pure virtue, without clarity, is a weakness. And in this video, we're going to explore what he meant. Not to abandon goodness, but to protect it with wisdom. Because the world doesn't reward those who are good at heart. It rewards those who are good at thinking. Let's begin. Machiavelli was brutally honest about human nature. He didn't believe people were evil, but he knew they were self-interested. And if you walk into a room assuming fairness, assuming reciprocity, assuming others will treat you like you treat them, you will be disappointed. Worse, you will be used. A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything, Machiavelli wrote, is bound to come to ruin among so many who are not good. That's not cynicism, that's strategy. He wasn't telling you to be cruel. He was telling you to stop expecting the world to meet you where you are. Because goodness without understanding is like walking into a storm with your arms open, expecting it to pass you by just because your intentions are pure. Here's what Machiavelli saw that most people miss. Goodness is often a performance, a disguise, a carefully worn mask used to manipulate. Think about it. Politicians who preach virtue while scheming behind closed doors. Influencers who sell morality while chasing profit. People in your own life who act kind until they don't get what they want. Machiavelli warned that the appearance of goodness is often more dangerous than open cruelty, because at least cruelty is honest. But goodness, when used as a tool to appear righteous, becomes a strategy of control. And the tragedy, the truly kind, the truly generous, don't know how to protect themselves from it. They assume everyone else is being genuine too, and that's where the downfall begins. You've probably seen it. The friend who's always there for everyone, until no one's there for them. The partner who sacrifices everything, then gets left behind. The employee who never says no, then gets overworked and underpaid. Why does this happen? Because in a world where most people are scanning for leverage, predictable kindness becomes a resource. You become the go-to, the emotional caretaker, the silent fixer, the one who never complains. And slowly, you become invisible. Because what is always available is rarely valued. Machiavelli would tell you, don't stop being good, but stop being so easy to access. Your goodness should be a gift, not a weakness. Here's the key distinction. Virtue, when chosen with awareness, is strength. Virtue, when practiced without discernment, is self-betrayal. The difference? Discernment. Knowing when to say yes and when to walk away. Knowing when forgiveness brings peace and when it enables harm. Knowing when compassion heals and when it's being exploited. Machiavelli believed that a good person must also be a wise one, because virtue without boundaries isn't noble, it's dangerous. It is necessary to be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. You don't have to abandon kindness. You have to pair it with clarity. That's what makes it unshakable. You want to do the right thing. That's admirable. But if doing the right thing means abandoning yourself over and over again, what exactly are you protecting? If your loyalty turns into silence when you're mistreated, if your kindness becomes a cover for fear, if your generosity drains you and feeds people who never give back, that's not goodness, that's martyrdom. And Machiavelli's message is clear. Stop sacrificing your peace for the illusion of virtue. Because the world doesn't change because you're polite. It changes when you're powerful, when your heart is intact, but your mind is sharp. Most good people don't just want to be good. They want to be liked for being good. And that's where the trap begins. Because once you start living to be liked, you're no longer living from truth. You're living for approval. You say yes when you mean no. You tolerate what drains you. You hold back your truth because it might make someone uncomfortable. But Machiavelli warned, it is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose. He didn't mean fear in the sense of cruelty. He meant respect, a kind of grounded authority that doesn't bend for applause. When you stop chasing the need to be liked, you start becoming someone who is trusted. And trust, unlike approval, doesn't fade the moment you say no. Let's talk about something most people don't admit. Even the kindest people have a breaking point. You can only say, "It's okay," so many times before it starts to rot you from the inside. You can only overextend so long before bitterness builds. Machiavelli understood this dynamic well. He knew that a person who gives too much without discretion eventually becomes dangerous, not to others, but to themselves. Because resentment unspoken turns into withdrawal. It turns into silent suffering. It turns into a heart that no longer trusts itself. And the irony? The people you tried to protect will have no idea why you disappeared. People don't follow the most agreeable person. They follow the one with presence. And presence doesn't come from niceness. It comes from clarity. It's the quiet power of someone who knows what they stand for, what they will accept, and what they'll walk away from. Machiavelli admired this kind of presence. He wasn't interested in charm. He was interested in consistency. Because when people know where you stand, they trust your word. They follow your lead. They don't test your boundaries because you've shown them clearly. Trying to please everyone makes you soft in all the wrong places. But presence? Presence commands attention without ever raising your voice. Here's a hard truth. If your compassion doesn't know how to say no, it will eventually collapse. If your empathy lacks structure, you'll drown in other people's pain. And if your goodness doesn't know when to defend itself, it becomes a playground for manipulation. Machiavelli believed that true virtue must be equipped with strength. A prince must learn how not to be good and to use this knowledge according to necessity. You don't need to become hard, but you do need to become disciplined, because the kindest people are often the ones who suffer the most in silence. Until one day they wake up and realize kindness without self-protection is self-erasure. Here's something that may set you free. You don't need to justify your heart. You don't need to explain why you gave, why you stayed, why you believed in someone. And you don't need to convince anyone that you meant well. Because if someone questions your goodness just because you finally drew a line, they were never looking for a good person. They were looking for a compliant one. Machiavelli would tell you, don't waste your strategy on people who can't see the bigger game. Your job isn't to prove your worth. It's to protect it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away quietly, not to punish, but to preserve. We like to believe morality is noble, pure, elevated, incorruptible. But Machiavelli knew better. He saw how morality could be used as a tool of control, not to uplift others, but to shame them into compliance. Ever been called selfish? Simply because you set a boundary? Ever been told you're not nice anymore? Because you stopped sacrificing yourself? That's the mask of morality at work. It's the guilt trap of people who benefit from your goodness and resent you when you reclaim it. Machiavelli believed true morality had to be protected from performative morality, the kind used by manipulators and weak leaders to guilt others into silence. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, he wrote, for everyone can see and few can feel. Let others perform their goodness. You live yours wisely. In the face of chaos, people will often pressure you to pick a side, to choose between extremes, to declare your loyalty loudly. But sometimes the most powerful position is neutrality, not silence, not avoidance, not weakness, but calm detachment while others fight for attention. Machiavelli admired this move, because when you don't overreact, you remain unpredictable. And unpredictability, that's leverage. People don't know how to control someone who isn't eager to prove themselves. So they pause, they observe, and you maintain the upper hand, not through force, but through stillness. Many good people struggle with one word, no. But even when they say it, they add disclaimers. Sorry, it's just that I hope it's okay. I just need to. I really wish I could, but that's not a boundary. That's a performance. Machiavelli would tell you, if your no is wrapped in apology, it's not protection, it's permission. A true no is clean, clear, unapologetic, not cruel, not cold, just firm. Because every time you over-explain, you signal uncertainty. And in a world that tests your limits, certainty is your shield. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that goodness must cost you, that if you're not drained, you're not doing enough, that to be kind, you must be constantly available. To be ethical, you must say yes to everyone. To be loving, you must absorb the weight of others. But Machiavelli's view was different. He believed that even those who serve a noble cause must guard their own energy like gold. Because the exhausted, the overgivers, the boundaryless, they don't last. They don't lead. They don't influence. They eventually collapse, and no one thanks them for it. Your goodness means nothing if it's unsustainable. Here's the truth Machiavelli understood better than most. Goodness is sacred, but only if it's protected. And the protection doesn't come from aggression. It comes from self-respect. Saying no when it's uncomfortable, walking away when it costs you approval, refusing to explain your decisions to people who aren't listening. That's what makes your goodness real. Because it's no longer about being liked or admired or praised. It's about being true to your values, your energy, and your voice. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, Machiavelli wrote, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, but not of more serious ones. What does that mean for you? Don't wound your own spirit with small compromises. Protect it. Honor it. Let your goodness be quiet, steady, and strong enough to stop apologizing for itself. There's something powerful about a person you can't read, not because they're secretive, not because they're manipulative, but because they don't perform predictability for comfort's sake. Most good people are overly transparent. They give everything away up front, what they feel, what they think, what they'll tolerate. And in doing so, They make themselves easy to manage. But Machiavelli understood. Unpredictability is a strategy. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, he wrote, because fortune is a woman and she favors the bold. When people can't guess your next move, they treat you more carefully. They pause. They respect your space. They think twice before testing your limits. That doesn't make you unsafe. It makes you formidable. People will try to provoke you, guilt you, trigger your empathy, play on your kindness, but they only succeed if you react. That's why the most dangerous thing to manipulative people is your stillness. You don't flinch. You don't explain. You don't rush to fix the discomfort. You stay rooted. Machiavelli knew that the first person to lose control loses influence. So instead of defending yourself constantly, stop playing the game. When someone tries to guilt you into saying yes, pause. When someone tries to draw you into drama, breathe. When someone questions your value, remember, their confusion is not your crisis. This is the power of quiet discipline. Let's be brutally honest. Most people don't value you for being good. They value you for being useful. And if your goodness is based only on what you give, your time, your energy, your approval, you'll be replaced the moment you stop supplying it. That's why Machiavelli didn't put goodness at the top of the hierarchy. He put strategy there. Because strategy protects value. If your goodness is strategic, measured, boundaried, aware, you don't just give. You invest. You protect your energy like it's precious. You discern where your time goes. You don't explain your presence or your absence. And because of that, you become irreplaceable. Here's where many kind people fall. They think they need to prove they're good, to defend their motives, to prove they meant well, to clarify that they weren't trying to hurt anyone. But Machiavelli would say, stop proving, start protecting. There is nothing to explain to people committed to misunderstanding you. There is no redemption arc in continuing to play the martyr. At some point, your self-respect must rise above your reputation, because dignity isn't loud, it doesn't plead, it doesn't beg for understanding. It stands tall in the quiet and lets the rest fall away. After everything Machiavelli wrote about strategy, fear, and realism, he still understood the power of a well-guarded heart. Because the goal isn't to stop being good, it's to stop being unguarded. True goodness is powerful because it's a choice, not a default. It's chosen with clarity, offered with boundaries, held in a hand that doesn't shake when told it should soften. This is what makes a good person dangerous. They can say no, they can walk away, they can discern who deserves their energy, and they can still remain kind, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but because they know their value, and no one can use it against them. What if your integrity wasn't something to suffer for, but something to build with? What if doing the right thing didn't have to mean being the one who always bends? You can keep your values and still say no. You can be honest and still protect your energy. You can be kind without becoming someone's cushion for dysfunction. This is the Machiavellian upgrade to goodness. You don't sacrifice your character. You strategize around it. You protect it. You direct it. And you stop giving it to people who see your virtue as a tool for their comfort. Maybe you've been burned. You gave too much, trusted too soon, believed too deeply, and now you're guarded. But there's a difference between protection and walls. Walls isolate. Protection discerns. Walls numb. Protection notices. Walls block everything. Protection lets the right things through. Machiavelli didn't advocate becoming cruel. He advocated becoming aware. Because once you can see clearly who's here to receive, who's here to use, and who's here to meet you, you don't need to shut down. You just move wisely. And wisdom is far more sustainable than emotional armor. Here's something no one told you growing up. You don't owe everyone access to your softness. Not everyone has earned it. Not everyone knows what to do with it. Not everyone intends to treat it with care. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't in telling us to abandon virtue. It was in reminding us that virtue must be protected by strength, because a good heart in the wrong hands becomes a source of personal destruction. Your softness is sacred, but sacred things are rare, and rare things must be guarded, not hidden, not hoarded, guarded. So give your love, but don't throw it into black holes. Offer your presence, but don't apologize for leaving when it's no longer valued. You were never meant to spend your life as the emotional safety net for people who refuse to carry their own weight. You were meant to lead, to guide with integrity, to love with strength, to speak with clarity, to live with presence. And none of that requires you to be liked. It requires you to be respected, first by yourself, then by those who are capable of receiving you. Machiavelli respected strength, but he also respected strategy. And the best strategy for a good person is to stop over-explaining their worth and start embodying it, with fewer words, with stronger boundaries, with unapologetic calm. So now the question is yours. Where has your goodness become a mask? Where has your kindness become currency for approval? Where are you being good to avoid being alone? You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become cruel. You just need to become aware. Aware of the difference between what's generous and what's self-abandoning. Aware of the difference between what's kind and what's compliant. Aware of the moment when the world doesn't need another agreeable person, but someone who stands quietly in their truth and lets that be enough. If this message spoke to something real in you, if you felt the ache of overgiving, over-explaining, and overperforming, leave a comment. What part of your goodness are you done giving away too easily? And if you're walking this path of strategic clarity and deep self-respect, subscribe. Because you don't have to become someone else to be powerful. You just have to stop apologizing for who you already are. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.